Welcome to Coffee with Chaos. My name is James. Here is my coffee. And apparently, behind me is the least chaotic part of my chaos. If you ever saw the other rooms, you'd understand. But what are we going to do tonight? Well, I'm going to talk about comic book ages, and do we really need another one? There's more than what you think. And then I'm going to go through some older comics that I have that I knew I had most of them, but there's a few of them that surprised me. So that's going to be kind of neat. I'll show you those. Let's see. I'm going to show you. I can't really show you what I pressed last week because I only really pressed one thing, and that's this. And if you watched my video that I did a couple of days ago and released, you've already seen it. So there you go. That's what I pressed last week. So yeah, my press does work. I'm currently getting stuff ready to press to start pressing again. And I will show those, what I plan on pressing next. Starting with Cerebus number 23. It does have some water damage, so I will humidify it before I press it. From Charlton Comics, Just Married, number 77. I will go ahead and clean and press that. Life with Archie, number 45. This is a Silver Age. The cover is not attached, so I will reattach the cover prior to pressing it. I might do a video on this one. Mighty Samson. What issue is it? I have no idea. Let's look. It's 12 cents. So it's from 1968. Number 15. And yeah, it needs a little bit of a clean and a press, so I'll do that. Creatures on the Loose, number 20. All the way up to number 20 on those. This Sad Laugh Special, number 57, can use a clean and a press, so I'm going to take care of that. Spanner's Galaxy, number 4, which is another one with a lot of wrinkles. But I do need it for my collection, and I'm just going to humidify it, press it, and add it to my collection. Warp number 4. I'll be pressing that one and cleaning it. The back of it got pretty dirty. And Classics Illustrated Junior, number 530. The Golden Bird. This one is not a first print. Several ways to tell. Number 1, it's 25 cents. Number 2, the order number on the back is number 576. If it was a first print, the order number would be 530. And if we look on the inside, reissued 1968. So there you go. They started putting reissue numbers on them in the mid-60s, so we can figure out when it came out. Definitely a reprint or a reissue. I think I do have a first print of that somewhere. I'll have to look around and see if I can find it. But that's the next batch of comics that I plan on printing. It'll take me a little while, probably a little over a week. And I'll show some of those. New items. What did I get new? Well, I got this, and I forgot to show it last week, so I'll go ahead and show it today. This is from 2012. And this Michael Mayron sent me with the comics that he sent me that I showed last week or the week before or whenever I showed him. I think it's great. My favorite Green Lantern, my third favorite DC Comics character. Superman, Wonder Woman being the first two. Surprisingly enough, Batman isn't in my first two. About number 5 or 6. So let's go ahead and show some of those comics that I was talking about. These are older comics from the 40s and 50s generally. So most people would say, oh, those are all Golden Age. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Because some of them are even older than that. Take out the first deck. I've shown this before, I think. This is Chick Young's Dagwood, number 32. It needs some work. It's from 1953. Is it Golden Age? No, it isn't. People will argue with me on that because they say if it's not Silver Age, it's Golden Age, and that's crap. I'll get into it later. No, Michael, they vary widely, and I'm going to talk about that after I show these. This one is Ace Comics number 32 from 1939. This is a Golden Age comic. I don't remember when this one is from, but this is Crazy Comics number 18. I believe it's from the 50s or 40s. I might be wrong on that one. This is (1949). This is Daredevil number 77. Not Golden Age. Here is Daredevil 72. This has tape on the spine. I'm going to remove it at some point. I don't know when. I'm thinking the best way to do that, since the cover is not attached, is going to be to get some Bestine and do a Bestine soak in with it. This one might be from 1948. Yeah, this is Daredevil number 67. It's from 1948. This one is got tape on it also. This one has a lot of tape on it. And I'm not seeing it. Oh, 1948. Daredevil number 46 from 1948. A lot of these Daredevils have tape on them. Number 52. I think this one's 1949, but I'm not going to swear to it without looking first. Yeah, 1949. This one is Daredevil 78 from 1951. Hey, haven't seen you in ages. I'm doing good. Steven Spock, glad to see you. We'll talk about Ages of Comics in a little bit. Yeah, they're pretty nice, but they need some work. No, he never did. Next up from, let's see, this is from 1950. and is Super Western Comics, starring or featuring Buffalo Bill, or presents Buffalo Bill. I'm not going to open this one up. It's pretty messed up. But this is Top Secret. And as you can see, I printed out in black and white and put it behind the cover so I could see the whole cover. And I don't remember what number this is. Next we have from 1953, Basil the Royal Cat, number 4. Don't remember what year this one's from. But this is Captain Marvel Adventures, number 39. I'm not going to take it out of the bag, but this is a really nice copy. I'm still going to press it, though. Make it look pretty. As if it's not pretty enough already. Felix, it's been ages since I've seen you. I've got a couple of people I haven't seen for a long time. Glad to see you. Here's Captain Marvel Adventures number 97. Absolutely, CC Beck. It's good stuff. Joe Palooka Comics number 22. This one is from 1948. Yeah, 1948. Panic number 7. And that's an EC comic. Oh, he stops in once in a while. Oh, well, that's good. I may try to find a reproduction cover for that, or an original cover for it, and marry him. This is Mickey Thin. No number on it. Oh, yeah, it is. It's number 10. This one has a color printed cover on it. It's not an original cover, but it was an LB Cole cover, so I don't mind it. And that's Foremost. Of course, I'd rather have the original, but that one's printed out pretty nicely. I think I'm pretty sure that one isn't an original. Yeah, that's just a print on a printed out copy of a cover that I put on front. Here's Daredevil number 47. And this one actually has Daredevil in it. And let's grab some more. Don't remember who did this cover. This is Ranger Comics number 40. This is an Airboy Comics from 1950. Roy, glad to see you. Glad you could stop by. Uh, this is Dixie Dugan, number 12, and it has a lot of bad problems here. I might try to when I get a little bit better at it, I might try to fix the interior pages with a little bit of leaf casting and see what I can do about that cover. Panic Comics number 8. Humor in a varicose vein. I think this one is, let's see. This is from the 50s. I know that. This is Daredevil number 101. There's a Romantic Western number 3, which I plan on working on at some point when I get a little better at leaf casting. I had a bunch of them that I sold a while back. I had almost all of them at one point. This is, I think this is this is a printed cover. So this is not an original cover, but this is Joe Palooka number 65. And like I said, it's just a color print of the actual cover. I like to know what the comics look like, what the cover looks like, even if I don't have the original cover. This is from Ajax Comics. And we are going to take this one out. This is from 1957. So this one shouldn't even be in here. It's Silver Age. It shouldn't be in here. Interesting, it says October 67 on there, but it's actually from 1957. So, yeah. It's from J.C. Penney's. It was a giveaway, and I don't know much about it. And it's in kind of rough shape, so I really don't want to take it out of the bag. Yeah, there was a lot of Frazetta stuff in it. This is a partial cover, and I'm not sure what it comes from, but it's from the 40s. This is a black and white reprint on the cover. I should go ahead and do this one in color also. Oh, wait. We can make it look a little better. If I take this and stick it behind, and when's it from? The print is too small and I cannot read it even with my glasses. Oh, 1952. Yeah, it's in rough shape, but it's from 1952. Crime and Punishment. Chris Bureau cover. Chris Bureau is the guy that did Daredevil. or did most of the Daredevil covers. Let me stick it back in there if I can. The back cover is all torn up. It needs some serious mending with some mulberry paper, Tingujo paper. There you go. Major Inapac, Space Ace. I got that from yeah. I bought that on Horizon Picks channel from one of the other sellers. Long time ago. This is a reprint. Airfighters 2, that is a reprint from the 70s. And it's the only reason I'm keeping it is got that airborne story in it. But in the 70s, they did a lot of black and white reprints like that. This is from 1956, Girls' Romances. That might be a Romita cover. I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up and see, but that might be a John Romita cover. I know he did a lot of this. Here is my Platinum Age comic, Ace Comics number 18. It actually predates Action Comics number 1. Not by much. It's from, I believe, 1937. That's the only one I've seen. How you doing, Patrick? That's the only one I've ever had. So not that common, I would think. Yeah, I've got some stuff in here that definitely this one is from no date. It's from the 60s. And the reason I know it's from the 60s is it's 12 cents. But it's Daring Adventures. And it has the Green Llama in it. And it is very badly water wrinkled. So dehumidifying that one. This one I got for free. This is Two Fisted Tales number 32. And it was given to me in the hopes that I could mend it. That was before I knew anything about how to do any type of leaf casting or anything like that, before I was using rice paper or mulberry paper. So yeah, I still haven't worked on it, but I will one day. Nice EC comic from the early 50s. This is T-Man number 38. And this one is from 1958. So Silver Age. Of course, we know it's you pretty much can guarantee Silver Age. You see the comics code. This is Famous Authors Illustrated. This was the Scarlet Pimpernel. This is the #1, and it was they started publishing these as to compete with Classics Illustrated. It's Spy Smasher 11. This was an insert in another comic, but I have it in here. I probably should put it with my Big Little books, but I won't. This is from the 60s, although it does not have a comics code on it. The reason I say it's from the 60s is, again, the 12-cent price tag. Jungle Adventures and #10. But let's take a look and see exactly. 1963, so very early 60s. But just to show you that not all comics adhered to the comics code. This is a quality comic. They did not adhere to it. Dell Comics didn't. Gold Key didn't. This is a copy of Crime Cases #7. It's in pretty bad shape. I'm not going to take it out of the bag. Kenneth Bird, how you doing? Here's another Daredevil from 1949. Really bad spine split. As you can see, it goes way down. I need to work on that one. That's number 88. And here's number 89. I like both versions of Daredevil. I like the Marvel Daredevil and I like the original Daredevil. So that should explain why I have so many of these. August 1965, so this is like 1948, 1949, right in there. Another Daredevil. Patsy Walker, #12. And of course, Patsy Walker is a Marvel Comics character. This one is from 1947. Iron Jaw was Atlas Comics from the 70s, and it's not related. Interesting thing about that, I think the Atlas Comics should be what denotes the origin of the Bronze Age, and that's something I'm going to get into a little bit later in the show. But there's a reason for that, and I'll explain it, like I said, a little bit later in the show. Like Daredevil 65, like I said, and this one I want to see if I have any of the original cover rather than just this black and white thing. Hopefully I do. Yes, I do. We'll see if I can slide that behind it. Again, I have a black and white in front of it, and I don't like it. So try to slide that in there. And these are comics that were title stripped for the newsstand that carried them to get their credit. Unfortunately, some of them, when they title stripped it, they ripped the first wrap also, the first page also. This is Justice Traps the Guilty, number 39. That's it for these. Most of them are pre-Silver Age. A couple of them are Golden Age, one Platinum Age. Definitely not all the comics I own. Definitely not all the older comics I own. My DC Golden Age, which I do have some DC Golden Age, are actually mixed in with my DC Comics collection. I have some from Action Comics. I have some Supermans that are from Golden Age and post Golden Age, which was renamed. I'll get into all of that in a few minutes. Time for some coffee. Before I get deep into it, I want to go ahead and answer why I think the Atlas comics should actually be the start of the Bronze Age. You see, comics and ages of comics generally have a reason for existing. A lot of people say, well, the Bronze Age started with Conan #1. All Conan #1 was an adaptation from the books. So I don't think that should count as the beginning. And then other people say, well, the drug issues of Spider-Man and the drug issues of Green Lantern. And those are good candidates, but why? And their reasoning is, well, they didn't have a comics code. It was the first comics without a comics code. Well, that's blatantly wrong because, as I showed you, several comics that didn't have a comics code seal, and they never carried a comics code seal, like the Quality Comics, like Dell, like the Gold Key. They didn't carry the comics code. They didn't believe in it. They felt that their comics were good enough without having it. So you really can't count those. So why do I think Atlas Comics should get it? Atlas Comics was creator owned. They published comics, but the comics belonged to the creators, to the original creator for the most part. A couple of them didn't, but for the most part they were. And it was the first time a comic publisher gave the original art back to the artists. That makes it more important. That makes those comics more important than anything Marvel and DC was doing at the time. Which is why I think the beginning of Atlas, even though it only lasted about a year and a half, deserves that thought of being the beginning of the Bronze Age. Yeah, that would push it up to like 1974, 1975, something like that. But still, that's the way I think about it. The only other thing I could think of that might do it would be the reimagining of the X-Men, which a lot of people would probably agree with me on that, because that just took off like gangbusters. That's true. Okay, now let's talk about the Golden Age for a minute. Back in 1968, 1969, about that time frame is when I got serious about collecting comic books. We had two ages of comics. We had the Golden Age, which went up to about 1945, right around the end of World War II, started with Action Comics #1. Why did it start with Action Comics #1 when there were new comics in magazines before that? Because the advent of Action Comics #1 and the introduction of Superman created a firestorm. Everybody started doing superhero comics all of a sudden. It was the biggest boon to the comics industry ever. And actually, not just the comics industry, but to magazines. Those comics outsold magazines like crazy. So that's why Action Comics #1 is the start of the Golden Age, because it was literally the book that kicked off almost every superhero comic that's ever been. But towards the end of World War II, and right after World War II, the superhero trend was dying down. It wasn't as popular as it once was, and they started looking to publish other things. In fact, I have here. I don't have my original #1 comic book price guide. It's gone over the years, moving and doing various things, and then a lot of things my parents got rid of when I was in the Army. Now, this is the third Overstreet price guide. It's an original. And I'm going to read a little bit out of it for you. The first regular comic book to carry original material, especially created for the magazine medium, was New Fun Comics #1, February 1935. While the first comic book to be devoted to strips of a single theme, as comic books are today, was Detective Comics #1, 1937. And of course, DC Comics gets its name from Detective Comics. However, despite these innovations, the comics magazines continued to make only minor impression on the American scene. That is, until the appearance of Action Comics #1, June 1938, which introduced the new world famous fantasy character Superman, the dynamic and colorful man of tomorrow, as he was known in those days. Immediately caught the public's fancy, his introduction resulted in one of the most phenomenal periods of growth the publishing industry had ever witnessed. Hundreds of new titles were created as dozens of publishers entered the comics field. The predominant theme was, of course, costume fantasy heroes. Not dozens, but hundreds were created to fill the almost insatiable demands of the readers. Superman gave rise to a golden era in the history of comics, technically referred to as the first heroic age of comic books. For a full decade, the fellows in the long underwear ruled supreme as comic books became the largest selling magazines in the world. After the war, comic book sales began to decline, creating a period of flux and change as the comic industry searched for new titles. Many Western, funny animal, love, adventure, and crime titles appeared and disappeared with equal rapidity. In early 1950, Educational Comics, Inc. announced their new trend in comic magazines, which ushered in the now famous EC era of crime, horror, and science fiction. The rest of the industry followed suit, and sales began to climb once again, but not for long. In 1954, Dr. Frederick Wertham published his book Seduction of the Innocent, and soon after, the comics industry was under fire, crime and horror titles in particular. In 1955, an official comics censorship was formed, the Comics Code Authority, whose stamp of approval can be found on comic books to this very day, which remember, this was written in 1973, so that's been a while ago. That's like 50 years ago. Because of bad publicity, the comics industry began looking for new direction as the then popular blood and gore titles fell by the wayside. During this period, some publishers got out of the business, while others shifted to the adult magazine market, leaving only a small handful to carry on in the hope of a brighter future. During the 1950s, a few attempts were made to revive the costume hero, most of which proved fruitless. It was not until the fall of 1956 that a definite trend seemed to be shaping up, starting with the revival of The Flash in National Periodical's Showcase #4. After several more appearances in the showcase, The Flash began his own series in February to March 1959, with the appearance of Flash Comics #105, a continuation of the old numbering system from 1949. The comics industry was not out of the woods yet, not until the appearance of Fantastic Four #1, November 1961, This book, published by Marvel Comics, began the Marvel Age of Comics magazines, which took the 60s by storm. The costume hero was in, and many of the 1940s heroes were revived during this period, including the Spectre, the Flash, the Human Torch, Submariner, Green Lantern, and Captain America, to name a few. This period is technically referred to as the Second Heroic Age of comic books. And that's all they talk about as far as Golden and Silver Age. That's as close as they get to it. That was from 1973. If we go forward a few years to, let's see, that was number 3. This is 15 years later. This is Overstreet number 18, and I have more, but all of them pretty much say the same thing until this one. This one actually started giving terminology. And they talk about Golden Age. And here they say GA, Golden Age, 1930s to 1950s. So it wasn't until, when I started reading or getting serious about collecting comics, Golden Age went to right after World War II. Silver Age was from 1956 with Showcase number 4, totally understandable, up until about midway through 1960. This changes it. But let me give you a few interesting notes here. The Flash appeared in Showcase number 4. The next one to appear was Challengers of the Unknown in 1958. They were like issue number 5 or 6. They got their own comic in 1958. And then after them, Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane appeared in Showcase. She got her own comic in February to March of 1958. Challengers of the Unknown got it in March to May of 1958. They got their own comic. Flash, although it's given credit for being the number 1 Silver Age, it kicked it all off, didn't get his own comic until 1959. Over a year after Lois Lane and Challengers of the Unknown got their first comic. Just a little interesting side note. Now, terminology. This is from 1980 something, 1988. Terminology: GA, Golden Age, 1930s to 1950s. SA, Silver Age, 1956 to present. So in 1988, they were still saying they were in the Silver Age of comics. 1956 to present. That was in 1988. Go one more year. And by the way, this one is number 19. Go one more year to number 20. 1989. And what do they say? Golden Age. GA, Golden Age. That's all they say about it. SA, Silver Age. That's all they say about it. But they do have some interesting thing in here. Post Code, comics published with the Comics Code Authority. See. Post Golden Age, comic books published between 1945 and 1950. Post Silver Age, comic books published from 1969 to present. See, they just named it as 1969 for the end of the Silver Age. Pre-Code, comics published before the Comics Code Authority seal. Pre-Golden Age, comic books prior to Action number 1, June 1938. Pre-Silver Age, comic books published between 1950 and 1956. So there, you see, so they changed it. in issue number 20. Let's go to the 23rd edition. And this one is from see, when was this one published? 1993. And here we have GA, Golden Age. This period beginning with Action 1, 1938, and ending in World War II in 1945. Post Code, comics published with the CCA seal. Post Golden Age, comic books published between 1945 and 1950. Post Silver Age, comic books published from 1969 to present. Pre-Code, comic books published before the CCA seal. Pre-Golden Age, comic books published prior to Action number 1, 1938. Pre-Silver Age, comic books published between 1950 and Showcase number 4. And I have been preaching this forever, that these were the names, and nobody wanted to believe me. Silver Age. Officially, it begins with Showcase number 4, 1956, and ends in 1969. So let's go one step further. We'll go to the 24th edition, published the very next year, 1994. And yeah, I know these are 30 years old, but still, it's kind of interesting what they have to say. And here we have, instead of technology, know your buzzwords. Because buzzwords were cool in the 90s. And let's see what it starts with. GA, Golden Age period. That's all they say about it. Golden Age period, GA. And then later on they go and say Golden Age. The period beginning with Action number 1, June 1938, and ending with World War II in 1945, which is what I keep preaching to people, and nobody wants to believe me. Then we go to Post Code, Post Golden Age, which doesn't change. Actually, Post Golden Age, comic books published between 1945 and 1950, which was what they said. Post Silver Age, comic book published from 1969 to present. And this is, like I said, 1994. No mention of the Bronze Age at all. Or was there? Let's go back one page. And there it is, Bronze Age. Non-specific term, not in general acceptance by collectors, which denotes comics published from approximately 1970 to 1980. Term which describes the age of comic books after the Silver Age. So this 1994 is the first time I ever heard of the Bronze Age. And I didn't accept it because didn't have to. It was, if it was published after 1970, it was a modern comic. We're in that situation again, people. Only now it's 35 years. It's 35 years. We've got pre-Golden Age comics published prior to Action Comics, pre-hero, a term that describes the issues in a run prior to a superhero entering the run. Pre-Silver Age comics, comic books published between 1950 and Showcase number 4. And SA Silver Age. Silver Age officially begins with Showcase number 4 in 1956 and ends in 1969. So it doesn't really change from one year to the next too much. But then let's go to 2003. 2003 doesn't have a glossary of terms, so to speak. Actually, it might. I think it might have had one in the back. Yeah, it has one in the back. And in 2003, they actually talk about the Bronze Age, comics published from 1970 to 1984. And then it mentions the Copper Age in 2003, comics published from 1984 to 1992. So that adds 2 years to what it was before, because most people think it goes to 1990, but it actually goes to 1992. So yes, your first Image comics are just barely Copper Age, even though a lot of people don't want to admit that. Golden Age, comics published from 1938 to 1945. And yet there are still people that insist that the Golden Age goes right up to the Silver Age. We're still in the modern age, as far as I know. Modern age, a catch-all term applied to comics published since 1992. Then it has pre-hero DC, pre-hero Marvel, and you can guess what those are, like Tales to Astonish before they had superheroes in them. More fun, adventure comics, detective comics before they had superheroes. And then Silver Age, comics published from 1956 to 1970. So if this, you see, it changed it from here to 2003. In 2003, now if I don't have the price guide from 2001, 2002 like that, because I was in the process of moving here. I probably have a 2001 one somewhere. But they changed the wording, at least as far as I know, in 2003 to 1970. So they increased the Silver Age by a year. So let's go to the last comic book price guide and see what they say. Oh boy. Bronze Age, comics published from 1970 to 1984. Atom Age, comics published from 1946 to 1956. And I used to tell people that there was an Atom Age of comics or Atomic Age of comics, and it was between Golden and Silver Age, and people don't want to believe me, but it's in here. Atom Age comics, published from 1946 to 1956. Bronze Age. Golden Age. Comics published from 1938, Action Comics number 1 to 1945. We're going to go to Silver Age. Comics published from 1956 to 1970. And normally, something happened to create an age of comics. Now, in the case of the Atomic Age, they in the late 40s they started doing a lot more science fiction comics that had to do with the power of the atom and the mutations that it would create and stuff like that. And that continued right into Spider-Man, of course, and the Fantastic Four. Incredible Hulk. All of those were affected by some sort of radiation. Then we have what they call the Bronze Age, 1970 to 1984. And then they list the Copper Age in here, of course, which is published from 1984 to 1992. And they don't mention the pre-code. Well, they mention pre-code, but they don't mention pre-Silver Age, post-Golden Age. They don't mention any of those because they're now covered by the Atomic Age. So sometime between, I think, 2000. Yeah, this one they didn't. This one, the main thing they did was just gave a list of the different years. Pioneer Age, 1500 to 1828. Victorian, 1828 to 1883. Platinum, 1883 to 1938. Golden, 1838 to 1945. Atom, 1946 to 1956. Silver, 1956 to 1970. Bronze, 1970 to 1984. Copper, 1984 to 1992. And modern, 1992 to present. So the question is, do we need a new age of comics? I say no. What has happened since 1992 in comics that is so dynamic as to deserve a new age? There was no prototype for X-Men. It was it was rushed out real quick after they found out that DC was going to do Doom Patrol, which is why Doom Patrol predates X-Men by like a month. So there's really no prototype. The prototype for X-Men was Doom Patrol. And the only Atlas comic for the Marvel characters was Fantastic Four. The rest of them were Marvel comics. Oh no, you got to look at Marvel with their 100 variants for Star Wars 1. But 1992 to 2025, that's a long time. But I can only think of one comic that really pushed the envelope and really created something new. And that would be The Walking Dead #1. If you want to start a new, if you want to label from 1992 to Walking Dead #1, I would say just expand the Copper Age to cover all of that up to Walking Dead #1, because that actually did do something for comics. Not really. Gold Key, 77 Sunset Strip, Tarzan, the Flintstones. They've been doing movie and TV. There was an I Love Lucy comic, Bob Hope comic, Jerry Lewis comics. Welcome Back, Kotter. That had its own comic. So you can't really say it was from the 2000s on. That wasn't new. They've been doing movie adaptations and book adaptations since the 40s. Actually, probably longer than that. I'll have to take a look at my at the original publication date for Classics Comics #1. I think that was Ivanhoe. I got it here, but it's buried, so I'm not going to dig it out. Yeah, I've got one too. Um, yeah, the Batman comic. They released the Batman comic like 3 or 4 days before the movie. That was from the night from 1989. I got my copy like a week before the movie, and a week before I saw the movie, and I saw the movie on opening day. So you can't really say that either. Yeah. Again, I do collect Conan, the Marvel Conan. Uh, I've got a lot of them. I don't have them all, but I do have a lot of them. Uh, I don't know how many. I made a list of how many I didn't have, and it wasn't that big. Let's see. Uh, yeah, it's the from 1970 to 1993, and it's 3 lines of numbers. So I don't need that many more Conans to have them all. And when I get them all, I will show them all. I'll do a video and show every single issue of Conan. Maybe 2 videos, maybe 3. There's like 273 issues. And yeah, I'll start with Conan #1 because I do have that. It's interesting. I have #1. Let's see. I think I have the first 3. I have it here on my computer so I can look at it pretty quick. Oh yeah, I have the first 3. Then I'm missing 4, 5, and 6. I have 7, 9, 10, 11, 13, 16, yeah, and 20, and then I'm missing a few after that. Yeah, sure. Or I can just send you the list of what I don't have. That might be easier. I think I actually have those. I don't remember. Uh, I haven't looked at them in a long time. I've got a database with the numbers, and that's how I know what I need. But yeah, I'll go through them eventually. It's like Cerebus. I'm missing the first 20 issues, and I have almost all of them after that. Of course, a lot of them have water damage, and I need to press that out, but I can do that. But no, I think we have too many ages of comics as it is, and mainstream comics, and that's talking about from like More Fun Comics #1, which is the first one that had new content in it, published in 1935. So we're going to talk about from 1935 on the mainstream comics. Uh, they're getting rid. I mean, in 10 years, they're going to be antiques. They're going to be no longer just comic books and no longer just golden age, but they'll be antiquarian books and magazines. That puts them in a whole different category. Once you hit that 100-year mark, it's either an antiquarian item or it's an antique. And before that, it's just vintage. And I kind of think because comics really, at the time of the publication of the original Overstreet Price Guide in 1970, nobody really, unless you were a long time collector, nobody really knew about those old stuff comics from the 15, 16, 17, 1800s. Nobody really knew much about those, or even that they even existed. So those are named appropriately. The Victorian Age, the Pioneer Age, those are appropriately named for items of antiquity. But Platinum Age, no, it's not. It should be named the same as the antique market. We don't need ages of comics, is what my whole point. All we really need is it an antique? Probably not. Is it vintage? Definitely. Anything over 40 years is definitely vintage. Although modern times, they've decided it's 20 years. I'm not sure when they changed that. But back when I was growing up, it was 50 years. It was vintage. And then they changed it a while later to about 40 years. And now they're saying that if it's over 20 years, it's vintage. Well, that's BS. That's a bunch of crap. That's a bunch of people that want their old stuff to be worth more than it actually is and to have a fancy name that it doesn't deserve. Items that are 20 years old, okay, they're 20 years old, but it doesn't mean they're vintage. Are you telling me a 2005 comic book is vintage? No, it's modern. It's a good chance it's going to be crap. There's some good stories, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of good stories in the comics from every single age, from 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. Even today, they're publishing some comics that have really good stories in it. But that doesn't mean we need a new age for them. I'm in favor of, if we have to keep the ages, let's expand the Copper Age to up to when the first issue of The Walking Dead came out. And then from The Walking Dead on can be the modern age. Because The Walking Dead #1 actually did something new. Aside from surprising the editors of Image that they didn't know that was going to happen. So, yeah, I don't think it's worth it. It's just, the Silver Age meant something. It had a huge impact on the comics community and on the buying habits of the public. The Bronze Age, not so much. Actually, in the 70s, there was a collapse on comic sales, and a lot of comics. If you take a look at the DC comics from that time frame, you'll notice a lot of titles being canceled and then put together with others. You know, Super Team Family, Batman Family. You know, there was a lot of them like that. A lot of them started getting backup stories from titles that originally had their own. Adventure Comics had some Aquaman stories. They had some Atom stories that were backups from other comics, whereas he had his own run before. #1, nobody ever published a comic that was specifically about zombies for 50 years. Unless you want to count The Monster of Frankenstein. I don't much count that, even though he is technically he's he's a zombie, but he's more actually of a flesh golem than a zombie. But The Walking Dead was about zombies and how they were taking over. But that was not what he actually pitched to Image Comics. And when they saw it, they thought this is going to flop, but it didn't. It boosted it. It went crazy. The sales on it went through the roof. It probably saved Image Comics. So that's why I would say Walking Dead, maybe, because it did have an impact on the comics buying public. And that's what you got to look for a new age. That's why I don't agree with the Copper Age or the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age really didn't do anything, unless you want to go into the Atlas books that actually gave back to the artist and paid higher salaries. They gave a living wage to the artist. Granted, they weren't in business very long, but they did something different. Aside from that, if you really want to go to the something totally new and different in the Copper Age or in the Bronze Age, you got to go with this book. It started in the 70s, in the late 70s. This is issue number 23, and it's from 1980. Yeah. So the first 20 issues were in the late 70s. That had a big impact. Once Cerebus came out, everybody started doing self-publishing. So you could say that comic actually had enough of an impact on the comic market to warrant a new age. But just having a Bronze Age because you had a Silver Age up until then and we need a new name, that's BS. I don't agree with that at all. But we have it, so there's nothing I can do to change it. I can state my opinions, but that doesn't make any difference. I find it interesting, though, that up until 1993, they were still calling it the Silver Age. All through the 80s. Yeah, it was still the Silver Age. Silver Age. 1956 to present, Silver Age. That's interesting to me. I didn't realize that. Like I said, as far as I'm concerned, the Silver Age ended with the Marvel explosion. And what I'm saying about the Marvel explosion, in 1968, Marvel was no longer under the thumb of the distributor that was owned by National Periodicals. Yeah. DC, which National Periodicals, decided how many comics Marvel could publish. And that's why they were limited to like 8 or 9 comics. They couldn't publish more than that. And they had to publish some bi-monthly because of that to get away with it. They could only do so many a month. And in 1968, it changed. They were able to publish as much as they wanted. They got a new distributor, the news group that distributed their stuff, and they were able to expand and blow up and publish hundreds of titles instead of less than a dozen. So to me, that was the end of the Silver Age. Always will be. Also, like I said, when I started buying comics or getting serious about collecting comics in 68 and 69, they were already talking about the Silver Age of comics. It was a distinct era of comics. And everybody generally agreed that it was already over with by that time. Exactly. They do continued stories. Uh, it was partially that and partially to get you to buy the next issue. Well, you see, I've never read The Walking Dead, so I appreciate that you telling me that. But it was still different. I don't think they changed enough. If anything, like I said, there was something of an implosion. There was so many comics on the market, and you had new comic companies coming out. Skywald Publications came out, and that didn't last but a few issues. You had Atlas Comics coming out, and that didn't last but a few issues. Your basic comics in the 70s, in the 60s and 70s, you had National Periodicals or DC, you had Marvel, you had Harvey, Charlton, Archie, Gold Key. That was it. That was all of the comic companies up right then. And then in the 70s, they added a few more uh, in the early 70s, but they didn't last long. Like I said, Skywald, Atlas, um, PC Comics, I think started either in the late 70s or early 80s. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look. I'd have to go check my collection. Uh, well, got almost all of them. Um, I think they started in the 80s. And then, of course, Cerebus, Aardvark, Venom, they started in the late 70s, around 78 or 79. But why not say Cerebus number one, Copper Age number one? It changed comics. It had a profound change on comics. I think 2000 or 2001, I'm not sure. I can do a quick check and find out. Let's see. 2003, October 2003 was the date on the first issue. But that's, you could also say, well, that's post-apocalyptic, so you can't really say that was the first one because we had other ones that were post-apocalyptic also. So yeah, that's what I would say is that it launched, or if it didn't launch it, it was the catalyst that made people look at them more closely. But I would not say that the early 70s significantly changed anything as far as comics go. What, the Cerebus kicking off the Copper Age or the kicking off the Bronze Age? Actually, I think it should kick off the Copper Age and have the Copper Age continue to go to 1992, just like it does, and just make the Bronze Age that small section, 1970s. They did do some interesting things in the 70s. Of course, Neil Adams got rid of kryptonite, but of course they brought that back. Yeah, it makes sense. Because the Copper Age really is all about the independent comics and the growth of that first wave of independent and a lot of crazy animal stuff like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and all that stuff. And the self-publishing is what it really kicked off. Was this self-published comics? Not to say there weren't self-published comics before that. They just weren't. They were all underground. They weren't really. Yeah. No, I looked it up. It's 2003. Issue number 1 came out in 2003. Yeah, it was, and that's what allowed them things like Swamp Thing and Man Thing, Howard the Duck. Uh, um, but the code was, like I said, the code didn't really mean anything. I mean, comic companies adhered to the code because it made it shut people up. Yeah, and how long did that last? Yeah, that's what I thought it was. That they didn't want a zombie story, but it ended up with a zombie story anyway. Uh, yes and no, and the reason I say that was comics in the 40s were all different sizes. You had real thick ones that were big. You had a little bit smaller. I've got comics from the early Atom Age, late or post Golden Age that'll fit in a Silver Age board. It'll fit in a Silver Age bag. I've got comics from the pre-Silver Age that fit in Silver Age bags. I've got comics from the 60s that you have to use a Golden Age bag for, Gold Key in particular. But there's others as well. But they kind of got standardized to 6 and 7/8 for width. They're all of them were like 10 1/4 inches, except for one or two. But they kind of got standardized to 6 and 7/8 in the late Bronze Age, or in the Bronze Age, and then they went down to about 6 1/2 in the modern age. So a lot of comics today are 6 1/2 inches instead of the 6 3/4 or 6 and 7/8 that they were in the Silver Age. And then Marvel's comics, even going back to Fantastic Four #1. If you buy Fantastic Four #1 and you take out your trusty tape measure that everybody always has right with them, and you measure it across like this. Well, let's do it with an actual comic. You measure it like this. See, this one is 6 and 7/8, which the early Marvel comics were also 6 and 7/8. They weren't 7 inches. The DC comics were 7 inches. Some of them were 7 1/4. So you can fit a Marvel comic, a Fantastic Four #1, in a regular size comic bag. A regular size, bigger than modern, smaller than Silver Age. Whereas a DC comic from the same year, you can't. You have to put it into a Silver Age bag. Yeah, I'm sure he's spun a lot of different things to get him to publish it. And it was one of the best things that Image could have done, even though they didn't want to. So yeah, that's we're going to check a few of these. I'll check this one. This one is definitely Golden Age. Might even be platinum. This is 7.5 inches wide. Okay. This one, Crazy Comics number 18. 6 7/8. This Daredevil number 77. 6 3/4. Super Western, 7 inches. Top Secret, 7 1/4. Seven inches. Check this Captain Marvel here. 7 1/8. In this Captain Marvel, 7 3/16. So yeah, there really wasn't a standard size. I have a gold key here with a printed cover because it was coverless. 6 3/4. And it's got a printed cover because the comic was coverless, but I wanted it in my collection, so. You can't really judge the year of a comic from the size. DC, a little bit you can. I think I should have a Silver Age DC somewhere. Yeah, I do, but not in here. I think all my DC Silver Age are in the other room, which is where they should be. Nope, I got one right here. Six 7/8. 1967. Do I have an old Marvel? Maybe. No old Marvel. So really, like I said, I don't think we really need any more ages in comics. We have too many as it is, and a lot of them are just 5-year periods. The Golden Age, 7 years. Atomic Age, 10 years. Silver Age, 15 years. Or, yeah, about 15 years. Bronze Age, 15 years. Copper Age, 7 years. Yeah. What would we name it anyway? 10? The Aluminum Age. 1992 to present, Aluminum Age. No, it would always be the modern age. Back in the 70s, we'd get a new comic. See, we call them modern comics. That's okay, Jackson Roykert. The important thing is you're here. Everybody, go ahead and hit that thumbs up and give me a like. I can deal with that. That'll help out. The Chromium Age, yeah, that would work. Although I think chromium is probably worth a little more than aluminum, so I might go with Oh no, aluminum has been going up, so maybe aluminum is good one, or maybe chromium is a good one. Tinfoil age. Mm. How about the greedy age? The greedy age of comics, because they publish the same comic with 14 million different covers, so you have to buy them all because you got to have them all. And they do that because they're greedy. They want all your money. How many covers does a comic book need? Seriously, that's a serious question. How many comics does a comic book really need? I can see doing a variant cover on a special issue. Let's say a 50th or a 100th issue. I could see maybe having a variant, one variant cover for that, but not for every single comic. How many covers does a comic book really need? How many different covers does a comic book really need? Instead of paying a lot of money for variant covers, why not pay these guys to draw the damn comics? So when did variant covers first start? There's a good one for you. Who was the first company to ever have a variant cover? National Periodicals Publications had the first variant cover. Not DC Comics, but National Periodicals Publications. Because they went back to print with Superman #1 at least. Back cover is different from the front cover. Had a different advertising on the back cover than the front, but the same front cover. So technically, that is the first variant comic that I know of. Of course, it was a reprint, but they didn't care. It's, yeah, I mean, if you have a copy of Superman #1, it doesn't matter if it's first print, second print, or third print. It's a Superman #1. So variant covers, and then Classics Illustrated. They did pencil covers on a lot of their comics, and then later switched them over to uh, painted covers. So you'd have, even though it was a different printing, it was a new cover. John Byrne's A Man of Steel #1 is given credit as having the first variant cover, but it's not really the first true variant cover. It was the first intentional variant cover. But if you want to think about it, go back a little further, and you've got the comics from the late 70s, early 80s, which had barcodes and not barcodes. Barcodes and barcodes with a slash in. You had the Marvel comics that had the diamond or the square. You had DC comics that would have a barcode with a slash, or no barcode at all, and another one that had a barcode. Those are technically variant comics, newsstand and direct. They were for two different markets. They're variants. But Man of Steel #1 was the first one that did totally different cover art for a comic that was being released at the same time. They released both issues in #1, both covers at the same time. So, yeah, technically, that is the first variant cover. Before that, they were incidental variants. The cover was basically the same, but would have a minor difference. With the Classics comics, you had a reprint of the comic, but it was different. I'm going to get a couple of those out to show you. That wasn't going to, but I might as well, since we're on the subject. If I can find some. That's a 6th print of the first Classics Illustrated. And it is a variant because the original was called Classics Comics. See, like this one. This was Classic Comics. This is a 3rd printing of #3. And here is a 9th printing. Same cover, but it isn't. Now see if I can find one with a different cover. And generally the penciled covers are earlier, are the original. Oh, I know where I've got one. Right here. That's a 3rd print. Notice the pencil cover. And this is a much later print. I'm not sure exactly which one yet. But it's the same. It's exactly the same on the inside. I ain't getting into. I'm not going into grading. Grading is a personal choice. Some people want their comics graded. That's fine. Some people don't. That's fine too. I don't generally like mine graded. There's a couple of comics that I would like to have graded, or I'd like to have graded copies, not have mine graded, but have some graded copies just to have. My copy of In the Days of the Mob is graded. It's magazine size. I wouldn't mind having my Spirit World graded, but I'm not going to pay the money to get it done. The only reason I would grade a comic is if I was going to sell it. So, like if I decided I was going to sell my Action Comics 252 first appearance of Supergirl, I would have it graded because I'd get a better price. But other than that, no. I have no reason to grade them. I can't read them if they're graded. And I know the arguments. Oh, you can read it online, or you can get a digital copy of it and read it that way. I tried that. I tried reading a digital comic. I couldn't do it. I couldn't get past like the 3rd page. there's something about holding a comic book and reading it that's the way I do it. It's the way I've always done it. I'll never forget. I was at a show with some friends of mine back in California, and I had just bought I think issue 46 of Superman from 1946 or 47, I forget which. But I had just bought it, and they're going, "Wow, this is great! You're probably going to flip it in a couple of years, right?" No, I'm keeping this. This is mine. And my wife ended up paying for it, but she bought a lot of other stuff she didn't know we would buy. I bought so many dollar comics and 50-cent comics that month, or at that show, that the price on that Superman dropped from like $100 and some down to about $2.50. That's how much I bought of just other comics that were in the cheapy box, and they were all in good shape, but they just weren't worth much. Now they're worth quite a bit. Now I don't think one of them is worth less than $5 or $10, and I only paid like a quarter piece. A lot of them were Tomb of Dracula. That's how I got my Tomb of Dracula 50 and my Tomb of Dracula #1. Bought it out of a 50-cent bin. Hey, why not? But you should never pass by a comic box where the comics are $1 or 50 cents. You never know what you're going to find. I bought a box of comics recently. I'm pressing 4 comics for the guy, and I was originally going to pay him $25, but I paid him $30 instead. And the reason I paid him $30 was there was a coverless copy of the Atom #2 from 1963 or 64. 63 or 64. I think it was 1963. The coverless copy, but hey, I didn't have one. I can get a good copy for $10, $15, no problem at all. But I'd rather have one that cost me like nothing or almost nothing, and print out a cover and wrap it around there, and it can be a placeholder until I find one that I really like that I just can't pass up. And it'll probably be in my collection for the rest of my life. So, yeah, I didn't pay a lot for that box, but then again, he did get 4 pressed comics. I'll show you those. Let me go get him. He hasn't picked them up yet. And these were pretty rough. Of course, any comic that I press for somebody else goes into Mylar. Those are the 4 comics I pressed for him. Good stuff. I did not read those comics. I do not read comics that belong to other people when I'm pressing them. I could, but I don't. That's the end of the coffee. That's the end of the show. Hey, I had a great time tonight. Well, like I said, he's planning on selling them. That's why he wanted me to press them for him. But I had a great time tonight. Good show. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. If this is the kind of format you want me to do in the future, let me know. If you want me to pick a subject and talk about it for a while, I'll do that. And I hope to see you all again next week, Wednesday night, like always. Sorry I couldn't be on the Friday night show with the Rising Picks last week. I had intended on it. Something went with my internet and I couldn't log in. I didn't have internet again until Saturday, but that happens, and so nothing I can do about it. Hit that. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss a new video. And if you really want to help me support the channel, you can always buy me a cup of coffee. I think that's on the link down below. But yeah, have yourself a great time, and I'll see you next Wednesday for sure. And you might want to check out the video where I take this comic from a wrinkled mess to something worthy of my collection. Check it out. I like making it. It was fun. But we'll see you next time, and have yourself a great night. Bye now.